The conference championship games are set, and Kyle Krabs has a brand new mock draft. We got a lot to cover today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Krabs from Locked On Dolphins, and we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5.
Joe, happy Victory Monday to those who are celebrating. 4 fan bases stayed alive this weekend. Moving on to the conference championships, which we will be previewing here today on the show, in addition to all throughout the playoffs every Monday over the 33rd team doing a new mock draft. And so we got a couple new names, a couple new fits. We'll get into those here as well.
So we start with the NFC side of things, Kyle Krabs, and it's the Commanders and Eagles. It's the Commanders and Eagles, and obviously that got started on Saturday with the Commanders taking command. Yeah, yes. I mean, how do you not? You just have to?
You have to. If there was ever a justification to keep Commanders as the team name, because I know there was some wondering about new ownership. Would they do another rebrand after the football team experience and now the Commanders? Just for the segues for the podcast, I think we probably need to advocate for the Commanders to be the name in perpetuity.
Yeah, I guess that's it. You're the Commanders. You're in the NFC Championship. You beat the Lions. The 15-2 Lions. They scratched and clawed for that 1 seed. They get bounced, man. And in Washington, back-to-back playoff wins. They knock off the Bucs. They knocked off Detroit. I mean, just extremely impressive, dude. They're running the ball all over the place on this team. Jaden Daniels making big plays. John Allen, welcome back. I feel like from the teams that won this weekend, the team that felt like they were the most juiced up, made the most plays was kind of Washington. They were the team that went out there and kind of did it, in my opinion.
Yeah. And was cool to see some of the guys who stepped up throughout the course of that game. You mentioned John Allen, who's been a career Washington talent, and this opportunity that he has, and Terry McLaurin finally getting a quarterback, was named second team All-Pro this year, and obviously had the long catch and run in this game. And then guys like Quan Martin, who obviously had the first interception, the pick six, who Washington fans could just not have been more eager to beat up if they saw him in public at a local burger joint last season, with how bad it was his rookie year before all of these changes came in and they made the coaching change to Dan Quinn. And I think a name like that, obviously it's one play in a big game, but he's been a better player than what he was his rookie season. And I think that's a nice reminder that the environment matters. And Jordan Reed is a good friend of ours, and we used to work with Jordan, and he's now over at ESPN. I don't remember who he had an exchange with, but they were talking about the parallels between Detroit and Washington as far as the culture of the programs, and how Dan Quinn obviously did it very quickly, and that's in large part because they had the number 2 overall pick. They hit a home run with their quarterback selection. But the whole observation was good scheme fits that are great culture fits for your organization with a culture builder at head coach. And to me, this is the moral of the story that I hope everybody takes away from Washington, is not just get the number 2 overall pick and hit a home run at quarterback. It's the whole picture for them. And that's why guys like John Martin and Terry McLaurin, who have been lifelong parts of a bad organization before these changes were made, and a guy like Quan Martin, who Washington fans probably would have been super eager to get rid of, can all be critical pieces in a win on the road against the number 1 seed.
That's a great perspective for Washington, and it's cool to see those guys. Plus, a lot of the new guys, Mike Sanders still coming in, and Frankie Louvo, all these guys.
Imagine overthinking Mike Sandersill.
Yeah, hopefully we'll learn some lessons here as these really good slot players enter the league, and then they're good in the league, and stop being surprised.
He's playing outside too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what
that was part of the conversation with Jordan, right? It's like, oh man, they drafted Ben Sinnott and Mike Sandersill. It's like these guys are dogs. They just play nickel. He played nickel in college and tight end, so we don't care about it. And that was part of the parallel with Detroit when you looked at the Detroit draft classes that they had and how it really kickstarted their program.
From the Detroit side of things, Kyle, I look at an operation that I felt got too stubborn this season. I appreciate the identity of who you are, but in particular on the defensive side of the football, as you continue to not have your personnel, to continue to blitz and play man coverage to the degree that you did, I think it was kind of silly. Like, you didn't have Aiden up front. You didn't have backers that were healthy. Of course, it changed a little bit later in the season, but you still love to play 3. Your corners are dropping left and right, and you're not changing anything. Like, I felt like that was a very stubborn situation. They love the trick plays. They love going for deep shots on 3rd and short. And it's like, some of this stuff is good, but it felt like they needed to adapt a little bit, and it winds up getting them bounced, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I'm not looking forward to the discourse that's now going to return with Jared Goff as a whole. He did not play a good football game.
Right.
But I agree. But then on the other side of the coin, you watch, like, people love to dog Detroit for like the aggressiveness on 4th downs, right? Mm-hmm. Washington was the same way, right? Like, at some point, your identity is what your identity is. And I think they played the hardest team to have to try to defend because of how much quarterback run, traditional run, and tagged routes on runs that you have to defend with Washington with the way that they're running right now on offense. So it becomes like, I kind of felt like when they were down as many horses as they were damned if they were and damned if they didn't with whatever they tried to do. It just kind of felt like the matchup went that way for Detroit's defense.
Yeah, see, the attrition of a season hit Detroit in a big way.
Yeah.
Eagles advanced 28-22. The weather kicked up in that game second half. And dude, like, just if the Rams could stop fumbling and catch the ball,
it's the whole story. It's the story of most of the games of the weekend.
Yeah, you can't make
these mistakes. Wow, you guys completely melted down and beat yourselves.
Right. And teams that didn't are playing for the conference championships.
Right. It's like, congrats, Detroit. You had 5 turnovers. Congrats, LA. The Kyron Williams fumble was a brutal one because that felt like they were going to get all the momentum back. And then there's turnovers we're going to talk about in the late game from last night in segment 2 that were critical parts of the swing of preventing momentum from pulling a team all the way back from the brink. It's brutal.
And it's hard to reconcile because I thought Jalen Hurts was not good in that game. He took some ridiculous sacks, like his decision making
for 4.5 seconds.
It's been like this story here lately with him, and it's hard to reconcile, and it winds up being a winning effort, and obviously, like, Saquon has 205 yards, but 78 of that came, right there.
He had 2 home runs.
2 home runs, and that's the thing with Saquon. You have to live with the muddy runs, and then he can hit some home runs, and their script works. Certainly, their defensive line was terrific, right? I think that's a big story in this game. They sacked Stafford 5 times, and Stafford had his own share of just moments where it felt a little bit mind-numbing. But at the end of the day, the team that made more crippling mistakes was the Rams, and their season's over.
Yep.
All right, we'll focus on.
Very bitter about that, by the way, because that was my upset pick.
Well, your process was fine. Your process was fine. It's how do you know, right? So, all right, we're talking AFC on the other side of it, folks. Be sure to stick with us. Growing your small business in 2025 comes down to how well you can hire, and let's face it, better hire start with smarter insights. That's where LinkedIn comes in with the strongest hiring data available. LinkedIn helps you identify the right candidates, giving you the confidence to make the best decisions for your business. I've used LinkedIn Jobs myself, and I can tell you it's a game changer when it comes to hiring the right fit. Small businesses are wearing a lot of hats, so every hire is crucial. LinkedIn gets that, and that's why they connect you with the best candidates using data that you won't find anywhere else. From unique skills and interests to the connections you share, LinkedIn helps you find the right person for the job. In fact, 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn has helped them find high-quality candidates. I know from experience how important it is to make the right hiring decisions, and having access to insights like what skills a candidate has or how they're connected to your network helps you feel confident when you pull the trigger. Hire smarter this year and find your next great hire on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Folks, it's playoff time, and if you're like me, you want to make the most of these final weeks of football action. That's where Prize Picks comes in. If you love football and want a chance to win real money while watching the games, Prize Picks is the place for you. It's the best place and way to turn your sports opinions into cash with daily fantasy player projections. With Prize Picks, you simply pick more or less on player stats like total passing yards or rushing touchdowns, and for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds, and whether you're looking for a flex play to boost your payout or want to cash out quickly, Prize Picks has got you covered. And with over 10 million members and billions in winnings, it's clear that people are loving this platform. I've been playing for a while now. I'm having a blast. It's easy to use, and I love how fast the payouts are. Seriously, gotten paid out in as little as 15 minutes when my picks hit. Plus, the weekly promos like Taco Tuesday discounts add even more value to my lineups. So here's a special offer for Locked On NFL listeners. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game.
Can we do something real quick? I want you to reach your hands out. Let's hold hands and form a prayer circle here. And let's pray that Ben Johnson takes one of these jobs so that we don't have to hear all of the updates about Ben and the interviews and him not sure if he's going to interview. You need to reach your hands out, please. We're doing the prayer circle. Come on.
How do you know that they're not?
Take my hands. I mean, my hands are out.
It's really weird. Yeah.
Just hold my hands.
All right.
Please, Ben Johnson, either take a job or don't. But like Diana Rossini an hour ago, going to lock in his schedule. He's not sure if he's going to interview with all the teams that are interested in him. But these are the teams that are interested, and he's going to do his in-person. Just please take a job or don't.
Well, there's your silver lining of the Lions being out. If these coordinators are going to go, they can go.
and if you do take a job, make sure to coach the wide receiver not to throw a bozo ball into very obvious coverage the way that Jameson Williams did.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of my quarterback being the player that throws the ball. I mean, that's like my thing, you know, one of my favorite things to do. It's like use your quarterback to throw passes. They're just like the best ones to do it. I don't know.
It would seem that would be the way you would want. But then the quarterback had 4 turnovers, so maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. The Chiefs, 7 years in a row, Kyle. 6 times they've hosted the AFC Championship game. They knock off the Houston Texans. Talk about a team that beat themselves. I mean,
yeah,
it's that simple. I mean, CJ Stroud taking mind-numbing sacks like crazy, and like Kansas City just not beating themselves. I mean, they didn't do anything spectacular. Pat Mahomes made an amazing throw for a touchdown pass to Travis Kelce. A couple plays they chose not to cover Kelce in the middle of the field.
Right.
And Houston can't score in the red zone. They negative plays. Like, you're just not going to win in the postseason. Like
you know what, the storyline for me out of this game was the self-awareness of Kansas City of how they chose to play the game. You understand what Houston is defensively.
Yeah.
They're a wagon. They're a load defensively, even with the guys that are down. So play a style of football that stays true to who you are and keeps your primary players featured, but is a plan and a game plan of self-awareness of how to not play into the hand of the team that you're playing. Because Houston's script to win the game was always, we were going to get after Pat, force some mistakes, get some sacks, get some turnovers. That was their pathway. And when they didn't do that and they didn't press, and every time Houston had to try to like extend themselves to really get back into the game, that's when it felt like George Karlaftis showed up and had a sack.
Turns out Dalton Schultz can't block him.
Yeah, you should probably not block Karlaftis with a tight end and a running back.
Was it 3 sacks? He gave up. It's like, come on. We got to do – we got to – I mean, Blake Fisher has no pulse at right tackle right now either. I mean, but that combination of protection breakdowns and C.J. Stroud, who's just not good at navigating the pocket, it was a nightmare against Spags. And he had the right calls in high leverage moments. And, Houston finds themselves going home kind of similar to the way that they lost last year. So Kansas City's moving on, and it's interesting after, two teams that in the divisional round had under 250 total yards and average under 5 yards per play. They're meeting for the AFC Championship game in the Bills and Chiefs because basically they just didn't beat themselves.
Well, and that's they're going to have more yards than that against each other.
Right.
But it's who you played, right?
Yeah.
It's who you played, and especially with the game script that Buffalo got, where Baltimore scores first, but then they rip off, what was it? 20-3, 21-3,
21-10.
Yeah, but Baltimore scored first.
They did, yes.
So then it was 21-3 was the next stretch of scoring that happened in the game.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Lamar throws a pick, and Lamar gets a snap on the ground and makes a bad situation exponentially worse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to compress the game, and I think that's what Buffalo did, where you saw they pulled all the aggressiveness out of the Josh Allen passes and turned them into high completion percentage opportunities to not be overly ambitious down the field and put the ball in harm's way and risk losing a possession. And they tried to run the ball.
Yeah. Well, they did. They got the most rushing yards of any team this season against Baltimore. I think compress is the right way to put it. It kind of frustrating to watch in the third quarter where it's 21-10. You feel like you're in control of the middle eight. You score on the front end of it. You come out, you go punt. You 4 plays in like 19 yards when you had your opportunity to okay, this game could be 28-10 before Baltimore gets the ball back in their hands. And you couldn't move the ball anymore. And the Ravens, certainly when they got back into the game, they could be more two-dimensional and got Derrick Henry going a little bit in that second half. But unfortunately for Baltimore, the season ends very similarly to the way it always does, with crippling mistakes and 2 bad Lamar turnovers. Mark Andrews, obviously a major 2 major blunders, the fumble.
Don't sell him short now. He had 2.
Yeah, you fumble and then, catch a 2-point conversion and give yourself a chance there. I know there's 1:33 left. The Bills would have the ball with a couple of timeouts needing a field goal. You don't know what happens, but give yourself a chance.
Right.
Catch the freaking ball.
I think the fumble kind of encapsulated the entire weekend.
Oh, it's 24-19. It's halfway through the fourth quarter. That was your go-ahead drive.
What do you do in doubling back with a fresh set of downs, first down, guaranteed, middle of the field, plus side of the 50?
Yeah.
You're going to try to double back, and as Mark Andrews, you're going to try to double back and get over to the other side of the numbers and get up the far sideline for what's the risk and reward in a cold weather environment with a hard football and it's kind of snowing on and off?
Yeah.
It just, and that's the play for me, that you look at every team that lost. You had that mentality at the wrong moments, and that's what adds up to teams going home.
And Terrell Bernard, obviously, with the strip and recovery for the Bills, and it's a great play. But, boy, he said, I'm going to throw a right hook, and I'm either going to force a fumble or this guy's going to get 20 more yards.
Yep.
And it worked out, and the Bills needed that play because they were bleeding. They were bleeding on defense, and they escaped with a 2-point win, and for the fourth time in 5 years.
They had just gone down 88 yards on the touchdown drive before that for Baltimore. That was the one they were backed all the way up, right?
No, so the one that they scored to tie the game, but didn't get the 2-point conversion. That was 88.
That was the 88.
And in 4 plays, they went from 2nd and 7 from the 26 to a touchdown. The field disappeared in 4 plays.
Yeah.
And one of them was a no gain. 3 just chunks, chunk, here it is. And and that was the thing with Buffalo's decision to ultimately kick that field goal and go up 8. They weren't stopping Baltimore. Mm-hmm. They weren't going to do it. And I don't know. We don't have to spend a lot of time debating that decision, but obviously they had to score and get the 2-point conversion. and they couldn't do it. And
I mean, I would rather take the points and
go up 8
and go up 8 as compared to not get it. They still have the opportunity to go the full length of the field and take the lead on you.
That's the argument.
To make 2 scoring plays happen.
Yeah. Well, and then if they're up 5 with 98 yards to go, they're going to play that a little bit differently to probably not leave any time for Buffalo. Like, you're just going to watch it go away. Now, obviously, the greatest thing, score the touchdown and put the game on ice, right? But they just got stuffed on the 3rd and 2, and it was a long 2. It's like, all right, you going to do this again?
Yeah, kind of lost half a yard, and I was expecting him to go, but once he lost the yardage, it's like,
right,
all right, now you kind of just take the points and force it to technically be a 1-possession game, but also a 2-possession game just to tie.
Yeah, thanks, Josh, for not pitching that ball. He wanted to. He wanted to pitch it.
So I was like, ooh.
Come on, boy. Let's tuck that thing away. Let's get on to the AFC.
But that's again, encapsulates the weekend, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm in the grass. Let me turn around and pitch this ball. Are more good things or bad things going to happen when points are at a premium with that decision? So he deserves credit for fighting the internal demons that told him to turn around and pitch the ball.
The teams that won didn't turn it over. The teams that lost turned it over a combined 10 times, folks. Take care of the football. All right, Kyle Krabs, mock draft, new one coming up. We'll talk about it here on the other side of it. Folks, be sure to stick with us. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has got you covered. They've got the early lines out for the conference championship games. The Chiefs open as a 1.5-point favorite. The Eagles open as a 5.5-point favorite. So you like the early action? Get on over to FanDuel and get in on it. FanDuel.com. You can join today. Get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
I'd like to ask you a personal question. How cold is it outside in Charlotte this morning?
I don't know. Cold. It's been freaking cold. I'll let you know.
Just check the weather app.
Yeah, I'm going to. It's 27 degrees right now.
What's the real feel?
Everybody talks about this real feel. 22.
Okay.
What about you? You got a little something else going?
Feels like 13 here. I'm loaded. I don't know if I'm loaded up today.
I see that you're inside. I mean, I know that you have a climate controlled environment there. Bundled up, my guy.
Well, no, because we talked about the air conditioning situation in my house, and we have one central air unit, and it's downstairs, and we manipulate the vents to cook the kids' rooms so they're nice and warm at night. And I don't want to have to mess with the vents every morning. So it's a cool, balmy, feels like 55 in my office. So we're bundled.
I thought maybe you just had somewhere to go. Like, as soon as we get done, like, you had to leave your house. You had to get the jacket on already.
Kind of, but not really. So mock draft came out.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
I have it open.
Okay.
You know what? The first thing you got to do is see who your team's picking. Thank you, Kyle Krabs. That'll work. So you've been on this journey. You've been cranking these things out. Was it like every week during the postseason?
Yeah.
How have you? So let me ask you this question: as you make mock drafts, how has the order being set combined with, of course, the underclassmen list is now full? Like, where do you stand? How do you see this? Is it you feel like you have a good pulse, like compared to normal years? Where are you on January 20th?
I've done more mocks on January 20th than I've done in every other year. I can tell you that.
Right.
This is a good class, just not in some of the marquee spots that are typically the headline positions of a draft class. It's not a good quarterback class. I don't think it's a great wide receiver class. The cornerback class is interesting, but has some players with some significant questions. If you need a safety, it's a great draft class. If you need a pass rusher, I think it's a great draft class. I think the offensive line class, now that the ball knowers and tape grinders are getting into the players who weren't the heralded names at the beginning of the season with the top names in August.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that those are necessarily the top names now. I saw Todd McShay has Josh Connerly as a top 10 player.
Welcome to the club, Todd.
That's right.
Let's go.
Fellow ball knower, Todd McShay.
It's not hard when you pop on a tape.
That's right. And there's a number of offensive linemen in this class that are like that I think it'll totally, if you really get into the tape on some of the guys, it'll change your perception of the top of the offensive line class as well. And it's a great tight end class. Like there's multiple positions where I think it is a great class, just not the ones that everybody cares the most about because of fantasy football.
Well, I care the most about D-line, and I continue to like the D-line class. We got D-line, we got tight ends, we got safeties, we have running backs, we have depth at offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's just a little different, right? What we don't have is quarterbacks and receivers, but
right.
you still have receivers going here. I think there's like 5 first-round receivers.
Is that factual?
I think so.
That sounds right because are you including Travis Hunter in that or not?
You know, Kyle,
we have Ted McMillan going in the top 10,
which
he usually does the back half of the last few picks. New wide receiver 2. Arizona fans are always very fickle about their mock draft picks. Right. I don't know if they're going to like Matthew Golden.
They'll let you.
I like Matthew Golden. And, as good as Michael Wilson has been, and I know they run a lot of 12 and they run some 13 as far as their personnel groupings. Michael Wilson's not stopping me from drafting a talent like Matthew Golden and go opposite Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah. So it looks like, heavy offensive line here in the middle. That's kind of one of my initial impressions of looking at this. I mean, we go offensive line at 10, 11, 13, 17, 18. That's a nice little run on O-line. I kind of like these players. The guy that feels like is rising here, and you gave this player to the Dolphins, so I assume you're in. Armand Membou from Missouri.
Yep.
This feels like a hot name.
We're doing him for Wednesday.
Yeah, it's Golden, Revel, and Membou. Yeah, so don't say too many things here, but he's a hot name. Yes, he is. We like
I see some very strong similarities to Robert Hunt coming out of Louisiana as far as like the build, the movement at the point of attack, but also like this really pleasant mover. And I know Rob got kicked inside to guard, but his rookie season, he played some tackle, and that's where Membou plays. So whether he ends up being a right tackle or a right guard, he's another guy that's got positional flexibility at 320 pounds. But yeah, it's the knocks here is he plays on the right side and he leans sometimes. That's kind of, and I'll save the deep dive scouting report, but I think the mock the previous week, I put him with Arizona at 16.
Okay.
As kind of what's your long-term viability with Jonah Williams? I don't like it. So I gave them Membou last week, and then he just goes 3 spots earlier this week to Miami as you try to go through different scenarios and different players that maybe are rising, and maybe they don't like Josh Connerly because he plays on the left side, and we feel like that's where Patrick Paul is going to play, and we don't want him to exclusively just be a guard, so we want to have some flexibility. So, well, maybe Membou with Austin Jackson, who's coming off of a knee injury but played inside at guard for times in his career. Like maybe there's a shuffling that can happen there. So that was kind of the thought process with why Membou got the spot here for Miami instead of just doing the same thing over and over again.
You have Josh Simmons going to the Bengals at 17, and the upside of that tackle tandem with Mims and Simmons would be so freaking good. If they pan out, right, obviously there's a lot to learn about both players, but that was intriguing to see. I think my favorite pick, though, in thumbing through this, it's just perfect. It's 22, man. It's the Chargers.
Yeah.
Getting Kenneth Grant. I mean, obviously the Michigan connections are impossible to ignore, but also just like that plus an obvious need, right? Like they need that type of player.
Mm-hmm. And Poona Ford was good for them this year.
Kind of on the 5 tech a little bit though. He's playing a little bit more toward. I think
Kenneth can do all that too, though.
Right.
So that's where it's like I think he's all the things that Poona Ford is, but with a prototype build, and I think much better pass rush upside. And they know him because they recruited him to Michigan.
Yeah, it should be an easy pick, right?
What's your
do you have a marriage that you came away and you're like, yeah, I like that. I hope this fan base does too.
28. I don't know that they're going to like it because of the position. Detroit Lions. Jahdae Barron from Texas. A guy who has played this year, played more outside, but he's traditionally been more of like an inside physical nickel, but a really, really good tackler, a total dog in the secondary. Right now, Detroit has 3 corners under contract for 2025. It's the 2 rookies from last year, Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw, and then Amik Robertson. And that's it for them at corner right now. And as you think about the way that I settled on, like, again, it's a good player at a position, regardless of whether he's an inside guy or an outside guy. And I know they got Brian Branch, who they like to move around. Like, I get all that. And I'm sure that's the feedback I'm going to get about the pick. It's like, oh, Brian Branch playing, you can do. And you're not wrong. But hear me out. Good player, culturally a great fit as far as his play style, the demeanor that he has, what Detroit wants to be. It's a premium position, but it's a player that has flexibility to get on the field faster. I like him much more than I liked Rakestraw last year, and I thought Rakestraw was an intriguing talent. And when Detroit starts giving out the contract extensions, they gave out the contract extension to Jared Goff. They gave out the contract extension to Penei Sewell. They gave out the contract extension to Ali McNeil. Aiden Hutchinson's going to be ready for a contract extension. Like they started giving out the money.
Montgomery.
If you have a position, a premium position that you can have a lot of cost-controlled talent to help offset, because corners get paid, right? I mean, we're seeing corners get paid in the 20s now.
Yep.
And that's only going to go
the
up.
Lenore contract's going to matter a lot in this cornerback market moving forward.
So as that happens, if you can get Terrion Arnold and Jahdae Barron and Ennis Rakestraw, and these guys if they all hit and they're all young and they're all on rookie contracts, that certainly helps the economics of your football team, because that's a premium position that most teams are paying somebody at least $16 million to play.
Yeah. I'm guessing what Lions fans are going to want, maybe interior offensive line, maybe edge is probably the spots that they're hungry.
And they get that most weeks. You didn't get that this week.
Mahogany was kind of good, right? Against the Commanders. Maybe he'll be an answer. We'll find out. And I mean, you can make the case for edge, but I mean, I think the important thing with mock drafts is it's about scenarios. Like, you're presenting scenarios, and
right.
You've kept it fresh for a long time here, and don't be mad about getting the good players, right?
Right. Kansas City got one too at 32. TJ Sanders, defensive tackle from South Carolina, big time pass rush guy. I think he had a pass rush win rate over 20% last year.
Okay.
There's a couple of guys like that.
I'm gonna have to watch this guy now. All right.
So
I like that.
And I'm doing my write up on another guy who was in that club, which was Norman Lott from Tennessee. There's a transfer from Arizona State. So there's a couple of penetration type defensive tackles. TJ Sanders is on that list. So we're going to do draft stuff on Wednesday. Joe, I think you and I need to offline about tomorrow's show.
We'll have one for sure.
Yeah. We'll have a show. So come back and see us. Kyle Krabs, Joe Marino. I appreciate you guys as always for checking out Locked on NFL Scouting. That's going to do it for us today. Enjoy the rest of your day. We're out of here.